125th anniversary celebration season, if you like. Let's just start with some reflections of thought on the club and the time that you have known it for, because 125 years is a big history with some big changes in recent years.
Yes, I started coming to the club in late 1980s with John, my son, and it was really because of him I came down, because he was 6 years old and nagging to go to football, and I scrounged some tickets from Des Williams, who was the chairman of Bristol City at that time, and we came down, can't remember which game, it was Bury, Bristol City against Bury, and he fell in love with it, and we started coming together. So that's how I've sort of known Bristol City well since that time, and obviously in recent years very, very well.
So your first memory, you can remember the first game. Can you remember where you were sat? Were you in hospitality?
Definitely not. No, we were part of the junior red section, really, up in the Dolman stand as it was then, and we just sat there and watched the game, and John would tell you Dave Smith scored the winner, and that was a great occasion. We watched the football from there for a while, and then we moved across to the 51 club, as again used to be, which was in the Williams stand, which is now the Lansdown stand. And because I was a bit older, I fancied a cup of tea at half time and somewhere warm, in the cold days. So we started coming as members of the 51 club, and then John, as you're going through school, we got involved in sports on Saturday and didn't come, and I started coming by myself. So as part of the 51 club, and the rest is history, really. I met Scott Davidson there, and Scott eventually sort of orchestrated a takeover of the club and asked whether I'd contribute, and I did, and got involved, and never thought I said I didn't want to go onto the board, but circumstances warranted that we did. That was the year we got a promotion, so obviously something symbolic there, hopefully, been involved ever since.
Yeah, and it was 2002, wasn't it, that you were appointed as chairman?
Yes, I was director up to that point, and then John Laycock, who was then chairman, stepped down in 2002, and I took it on.
Did you have a vision then of what you thought the club and the city could become?
I wouldn't say I had it then. I think it grew over a period of time, but I got involved in football like most people do, because you think you can make a difference, and you want it to be successful. You want to be successful because of for the area, for the supporters, and for yourself, really, because it's, let's face it, we all got egos and we want to be successful. I think really I got the sort of the real focal point came when the situation arose with the Bristol Bears, as it is now, again, with the rugby basically going bust. And helping to save them, and then realising the potential of putting the sports together under Bristol Sport banner, and developing it, and then it all started to fall into place, really, because I felt that if we can get people coming to the games, we get the best infrastructure for the clubs, then we've got a chance. And if the city can support sport, then sport can support the city, and the combination of the two gives us the opportunity to be successful. Yeah,
your investment, not just in the clubs alone, but actually in the facilities, that is kind of one of the bits that is at the heart of all of it, isn't it? Because as we all are painfully aware, in sport you win some and you lose some. The one thing you can control is where you're winning and you're losing.
Yes, I think that's right. I think the biggest sort of project, if you like, from my perspective, was the stadium, and building this stadium, and that's surpassed my expectations, and foremost Martin Griffiths and his team in coming up with the design and of what is in fact one of the best stadiums in the country, we basically developed that, and I had that sort of saying in my head that I want Bristol City to play in the best possible surroundings at the highest possible level. So we created the best possible surroundings to play in. We're now going to create the best possible surroundings to train in, and then we can hopefully play at the very highest level. And that's the dream, is obviously to be in the Premier League.
How much does it sort of the nod back to the future? I mean, it's a bit like you forget your roots or your history at your peril. How much does it gladden you to think that with the rebuild of staying in this stadium and rebuilding this stadium rather than choosing to build in a new fresh zone, the incorporation, say, of the Dolman stand, the nod to John Asio, all of those touches that are such a central part to the club?
They're very, very important. I mean, and you know, I mean, I look back over the history of Bristol City, and obviously I wasn't there at the beginning, but you know, we had that period when, you know, we got ourselves into the top division. We got to the cup final, didn't win it. And we have a replica shirt, not replica, an actual shirt from the cup final in our store, ready to go into on display when we get the opportunity. And we have Chris Crow's England caps, and all that history is there. I think the thing that, if you like, disappoints me is that we haven't got more history. And of course, we're in the business of creating history for the future. So, you know, so I think in a sense, the real thing that I can say that this club has got, and has had ever since I've known it, and I think has had it for many, many years, because you look back over the pictures of the crowds and listen to the stories of the people who watched it, and their parents had watched it, and their grandparents had watched it. It's the community spirit. And I think, again, one thing I'm very, very pleased of where we are now is, you know, what the Robbins Foundation is now doing within the community, working with the community, what the players do in the community, how the club pulls the community in, because we are the hub of the community here at Ashton Gate, and that's so important. And I think, you know, 125 years is 125 years of community here in South Bristol.
Mm-hmm. And something, as you say, to be celebrated. You talk about being in the business of creating these amazing moments, or, you know, you almost wish there was more that you could reflect back on. There have been some pretty amazing moments, though, under your tenure as well. If you had to pick out top two?
Well, I think I was going to pick out which wasn't under my tenure, which would obviously been the time that Clive Whitehead scored the goal here to take us into the First Division. It wasn't the Premiership then, but into the top division in England. That was obviously a very special moment, and those years spent in the top division is what we all want to aspire to get back to if we possibly can. Seeing Alan Dix here at games now it reminds us of all of that time, and the fact we haven't quite got to those levels since. On a personal note, I think the double year 2015 when we won League One, that's the first championship that we've won. The first, being top of the division for 60 years was unbelievable. You know, that was something that I was really, really proud of. And then obviously winning the Johnson Paint Trophy at Wembley in front of 40,000 Bristol City fans was a great moment to be able to do that. Was a fantastic achievement. In the special games, obviously the winning against Manchester United here in the Carabao Cup in the quarter-final, with Corey Smith scoring that last-minute winner, and for him to score it was very special as well, because he's a very special player to us here. And that's you know, every time you see that or even think about it, it just brings goosebumps on your neck, and you think, I just want more of that.
Yeah, we just want another one. It's interesting, isn't it? Because looking around the stadium and looking at some of the imagery, I know we've just been having a look at some of the photos here. They bring back those moments. You can almost hear the roar of the crowd. You were just talking over one of the pictures, saying, you know, you can remember the referee saying, "I've never heard a noise like it." Yeah,
that was Christian Roberts scoring the winner against Hartlepool again in the playoff semi-final here against Hartlepool, and you know, it sounds like, you know, when you say Hartlepool, you know, Hartlepool are now in the National League, I think, and our paths have diverse, but at that time they were a very strong side, and they were only minutes away from getting to the final themselves, and we came back and scored twice in the last few minutes, and Christian Roberts went through to score that winning goal, and I think Jonathan Pearce was the commentator, you know, great Bristol City fan, and he shouted from the rooftops when it went in, and it was Graham Poll who was the referee at the time, and he said in the paper afterwards, he's refereed big games, World Cup games, European Champions games, etc., but he's never heard a noise like it when that goal went in. The roof effectively came off the dolman on that occasion. Yeah.
You were talking as well, you mentioned Alan Dix there, sort of one of the longest serving Bristol City managers. Do you think, reflecting back on the time sort of leading up to, under his tenure of their promotion to the top flight as it was then, do you think so many things have changed since that time in terms of progressing into now the top flight, into the Premier League? Do you think there's so much more that has to go on behind the scenes to be able to make that final step?
Well, professional sport and professional football has progressed a long way since those days. I mean, just the sports and science and the obviously the money aspect of things is much greater these days, and we're up against much bigger competition to make that jump. But the principle is exactly the same: is that you build a team, you build a team that you trust, you build a team that is a real mates together. Even now, you know, that team still comes back and spends time here at Ashton Gate when they can, and it's that magic moment when it comes together. And obviously Alan got it together at that point. You know, he spent a lot of time getting to that point as well as a manager. He served a long time until that point came around, and then it finally worked. And then he had, you know, they had 4 great years in Division 1, and you know, put us on the map.
And like you said, that's one of the things that you're so keen to do, is to have us on the map. I know when we first started talking, it was about making Bristol this city that is recognised for sporting greatness. Do you think, looking forward to the next 125 years, do you think it will have made that transition, largely because of the investment in the facilities? You know, you've alluded to the 2 training grounds for Bears and City, of course the sporting quarter as well, development with the Sports and Convention Centre. That will, you know, we're almost just custodians or guardians of this footprint for a certain amount of time.
Well, we're talking of 125 years of Bristol City, so we're going back to 1894, and obviously times we didn't experience ourselves, but we are talking about them. And you know, when people are talking about 2020 in 125 years time, you want them to be looking back at, this is the time that the club or the sports in Bristol were progressing at a rapid rate and put us on the map and created whatever the legacy will be in the future. All we can do, and all I can do, is invest into the club and give it the infrastructure in order to be able to, for future generations to build on. And I think if we are doing that, and that's unfortunately, I probably won't be around to see it, but you know, my son, grandsons, etc., hopefully will, and will enjoy the joy of success in the future. You know, Bristol as a city it's a great city, but it does undersell itself, and it does frustrate you at times. I mean, you know, we won't go into all the problems we have with the potential stadium and when we were trying to go for that. But at the end of the day, when it all gets together and everybody gets behind it, it goes places, and that's what hopefully sport can do for Bristol, and Bristol can do for the sport. And I think we're feeling that now under the Bristol Sport banner. And the Sports and Convention Centre here will emulate that as well. The fact that you're creating a sporting village, where a destination where people will come on a regular basis to watch whatever sport it is, to participate in whatever leisure activity it might be, and will certainly help South Bristol economically, but will actually give a focal attention on Bristol as a place to be. That how can I put it? That Bristol believes in sport. Bristol is good at sport. Bristol is a place to come where you can enjoy your sport. You can only win so much in sport. That's the thing. You know, there's only one gold medal to win. There's only one team can be champions. Only one team can win the cup. So, and if you're one of those teams, that's fantastic. Enjoy those moments. But trying to get there, trying to achieve it, having 20,000 people come every week to watch you, having people travelling the length and breadth of the country to watch you, to have the television cameras wanting to be here, to having the journalists wanting to come and talk to you about what you're doing, that's all success, and that puts focal point on Bristol as a whole. It just makes us proud.
Yeah. You've touched on the fact that, you know, you've been involved for X number of years. I'm just trying to quickly do the maths, but about 25 years or so involved out of 125 years. But of course, for you, it is a very big part of family life. You know, you've touched on John being here. He works in the business day in, day out. But of course, Maggie is here pretty much for every game, and your daughter as well. Sitting in 50 years' time, say, as John's having an interview with someone that won't be me in 2070, what would you count as that would make me proud? Would it be that we're just in the Premier League, we're in the Premier League, or would it be actually Bristol is a sporting city?
I think the latter. I think Bristol is a sporting city because we don't know where we're going to be, and I would like to think that they'll be reflecting on either being in the Premier League or time spent in the Premier League, because that's what we all aspire to. I would like to, just looking across the piece, if you like, of what we've got. I'd like to see the Flyers. I'd like to see them, British champions and in their new home and really making basketball tick and being a really popular sport in Bristol. I'd like to see the Bears, being the top club in the country, if not Europe. And I'd like to see Bristol City being one of the top clubs in the country that everybody then talks about, as they do now with, say, Leeds in our division, where of their past times in the Premier League and everything else, and how good they were and everything else. That Bristol City will either be in that position or will be one of those top teams in the Premiership. Mm-hmm.
It's quite a sobering thought to think that under the Lansdown stewardship, shall we say, we could have 5 clubs that are all playing in the top flight and many playing in Europe.
It is, but it's the belief. You have to believe in what you're doing, and I mean, I love what I do. People say to me, "Why on earth do you get involved in sport?" And I said, you can't answer that question really, other than the fact that you can and you're able to do it. But I've got no regrets, no regrets. And I think whatever happens in the future, as long as I can look back on everything and say no regrets. But I can see, if I'm talking sport generally now, I can see the Bears being top club in the UK, top club in Europe. I see the Flyers being top basketball team in the UK. I can see us expanding outside of the UK with all these sports. I see Bristol City being a Premiership side, winning trophies in the Premiership, because why not? And the thing is, you've got to have that belief, and I believe in all these, in what we're doing, and I believe in the people involved. And if John's doing his interview in 25, 30 years' time, looking back at it, hopefully that's what he'll be reflecting on, is the success we've had as a club and still having as clubs in that time. And that's what it's all about. It's there to be enjoyed. And again, people say to me, what's the best buzz you get? And one of the real buzzes, is that there's 2 things really. One is with the players, seeing them, how they react when they've won a game of football or a game of rugby or a game of basketball after that final whistle goes and they've won. The joy in their faces, the satisfaction of having achieved something, that really means a lot. And then seeing the supporters going home with smiles on their faces, singing their songs, boasting about it in the pubs or whatever they're doing afterwards, that's all part and parcel of it. And it's that community spirit that we've got here that we just got to keep nurturing.